All right. Hey guys. So today we're just going to finish up this chapter 7, learning about biodiversity and conservation. So, the beginning of this chapter, we looked at what biodiversity is and why it's super important, right? We know that the more biodiversity an ecosystem has, the healthier it is and the more stable it is, meaning that if something were to go wrong, um, it would be able to bounce back and remain a healthy ecosystem. So, high biodiversity for the overall health of any ecosystem is very important. And then last section, we looked at sort of what humans are doing to create this loss of biodiversity worldwide, which is contributing to this sixth mass extinction event, right? And remember, this is a unique mass extinction that's happening right now because for the first time in forever, um, a species that's living on the planet is causing other species to go extinct. Before it was just some sort of natural disaster, but now humans are creating issues for various species around the world, which is causing a loss of biodiversity. Now we're going to look at, in this section, what we're trying to do to sort of correct that. How can we preserve what biodiversity we have left and hopefully bring some of that back so we continue to have flourishing, healthy ecosystems? So that's why this section title is The Future of Biodiversity. What does the future hold for the biodiversity on our planet? So, some things that we try to do, or something that we are trying to do, which hopefully will, bring back some of these endangered species to some healthier numbers as far as their population goes, is something called the captive breeding program. And this is just like what it sounds like, in some sort of protected environment like a zoo or some kind of sanctuary. We're taking these endangered species and trying to have them breed and produce more offspring to then hopefully grow their population numbers back. Um, the issue with the captive breeding program, however, is that even if the breeding is successful and they're able to produce new offspring, um, the idea is to then introduce them back into their sort of natural habitat. And when they go to do that, a lot of the times these species that are being born and bred in captivity are having a very hard time adjusting to their natural habitat because they're not used to sort of having to fend for themselves. Um, right. If they're in captivity, they're getting food supplied for them. They don't really need to hunt for it on their own. So their survival skills aren't quite as good as what they would be if they were just born naturally out um, in nature. So this is just recapping everything that I said. It doesn't do much to help preserve a species. Sometimes they don't survive when they go back into the wild. Um, and a lot of times inbreeding will occur when this happens. So basically, with a smaller population, there's not a lot of genetic diversity, which can create some issues as far as new offspring that are being born and being made. Um, However, the most effective way to save a species is to protect its habitat. So the natural habitat that it is found in the environment, that's what we need to save. We need to preserve and make sure that that habitat is a healthy one. And again, the more biodiversity these ecosystems, these habitats have, the healthier that they are overall. And this is especially the case for species that require a large range, so they need a large area to live on. Because again, we looked at it before in the last section, humans are creating a lot of habitat destruction and fragmenting, breaking up that large range where these species would be typically found. So they have a hard time sort of adjusting to the smaller space that they now have. So if we can preserve a larger area of land, that's going to do wonders for these endangered species. So some legal things that we have done to sort of protect these endangered species is put them or I guess, yeah, list them in the Endangered Species Act. So that's a U.S. law that basically outlaws any sort of hunting or disturbance of these endangered species. Excuse me. Um, and so this picture up here, guys, this is a bald eagle. If you were not aware of that, you guys know that I'm a big Eagles fan, so this kind of speaks to me, even though bald eagles and the Philadelphia Eagles team aren't exactly the same thing. But anyway, um, bald eagles were an endangered species for a very long time. Since then, right, we have seen a big sort of increase in their population, and they have actually been removed from that Endangered Species Act. They're no longer listed there because their population has come back, and it's now at a healthier number, um, which is really cool to see. So this does sort of work if we're able to protect these species and protect their habitat. Here we go, a little bit more about the Endangered Species Act. As I said, it protects plants and animals that are endangered of going extinct. And currently, there is up to 1,300 or even more than that species that are on that list. It also, as I said, not only can you not harm the species itself, but its habitat as well. Because again, the most effective way to protect a species is to protect its habitat, to make sure that where it lives is sort of untouched so they can go about their normal lives. Also, it forbids trade from any of these species that are listed. So, um, for example, we can use this Florida panther. The Florida panther is still listed on the Endangered Species Act. So if somebody, for whatever reason, were to hunt and kill somebody or hunt and kill some Florida panther, um, they would not be able to then sell the coat of that panther. So again, hopefully to discourage the actual act of hunting down and killing one of these endangered species. As I said, Endangered Species Act protects listed species from harm. So if you are on that endangered species list, then you are protected. Um, and again, it includes no development that would harm the listed species. So again, protecting its habitat. We don't want any sort of big companies or anything like that moving into an open area where, for example, this spotted owl is found naturally. Right. We want to preserve that habitat, so we're not allowing any sort of development to occur in its where this species would be found. And this ties into something called the Habitat Conservation Plan. Um, and it could be something as simple as, just like this picture shows you, having a sign, boom, right outside of where the forest, where, whatever the species is, where it might be found. So in this example, this eastern indigo snake, it's a protected species. It says so right on the sign there. So it's sort of warning people, don't harm this species and don't mess with anything that's in its habitat that might harm it. So again, we're doing everything that we can to hopefully preserve the habitat so then those species can sort of come back on their own naturally and regain a healthy population size. We're going to skip over this one. It's again just giving you more information about the Endangered Species Act, all of the statistics. Something that is interesting to point out, a lot of the species that are on there are plants. I know, and I'm guilty of this too. When we're talking about endangered species, we think of, oh, the polar bears or blue whales or anything like that. But plants are species too, right? And if you remember from when we talked about the importance of biodiversity, plants are important for a lot of different reasons, specifically for medicinal purposes, right? They let us create certain medicines that are very helpful with pain or really any other disorder. And there were even ones that were listed there that were meant to not cure cancer, but help treat it. So by saving these plants, we're hoping that, maybe somewhere down the line, they can, again, help us create some sort of medicine that will help with any other harmful diseases. A wildlife corridor here, guys, this is just giving you an example of, preserving a habitat conservation plan. So that the corridor there where you can see it's highlighted, it's just giving you an idea of what part of the area is protected for these species to live safely. That's just showing you one in Yellowstone National Park, all the way down to the Yukon region. So up and down the western part of our country. So that was really, the Endangered Species Act is really just for the United States. But internationally, okay, worldwide, there's this law or this thing called CITES, which is sort of like an international law, I guess, if you want to think of it that way, which prevents illegal trade of endangered species. So something that is a major issue is the killing of, or the poaching of elephants. So the illegal hunting and killing, which is poaching of elephants for their ivory tusks. You can see in this picture here. Ivory is used to make a whole bunch of different things, a lot of different like figurines. It's really sort of like a status symbol. If you have something that's made out of ivory, it's meant to be like you're a wealthy individual or a wealthy family. But CITES prevents any sort of illegal trade of anything that is from or could be harvested from one of these endangered species, much like ivory or the horn of a rhino, or the coat um, of a Florida of a panther, or a tiger, for example, things that can be found worldwide. So this is, again, hopefully to discourage that poaching of these endangered species to, again, hopefully their numbers can grow back, and they can have a healthy population again. One of the biggest problems, though, however, is it's hard to really police, I guess. It's hard to say, to different countries, stop doing that, because they're their own country. They're going to do sort of whatever they want or whatever their laws say. And in the oceans, this is a particular issue because, who owns the ocean, right? Who is responsible for monitoring how much fish is being caught or which fishes are being caught? So as you can imagine, it's a little bit of an issue. However, they're still trying to monitor it very closely. That's why certain, depending on what you're fishing for, the fish might need to be a certain size or mature to a certain point, for you to actually be able to catch them. If it doesn't meet those requirements, then they have to get put back. Again, so hopefully, if they're immature, whatever that fish might be, they can then hopefully grow to a mature age where they can reproduce, help that population come back a little bit before they end up being caught and harvested by humans. So that is all of Section 3, guys. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you learned a little bit about something about how we are trying to preserve and conserve the amount of biodiversity that is remaining on our planet, and hopefully it can improve. And we can see some of these endangered species removed off of that Endangered Species Act.